You've heard it, maybe you heard it in a movie, maybe a friend played it for you late at night. Or maybe you just stumbled across it on some deep cut playlist and you stopped what you were doing. You probably thought, is that him? Is that really Elvis? It doesn't sound like him. Not the rock and roll Elvis, not the movie Elvis, and definitely not the Las Vegas Elvis. This voice is something else entirely. It's a ghost. It's a sound from a different planet. It hangs in the air, thin and strange and beautiful. It's a recording that asks a question. And the question is, what happened here? Why does his voice on this one particular song sound so completely hauntingly different from anything else he ever did? The answer isn't a simple one. It's not just one thing. It's a mix of time, place, and people. It's a story about a young kid who hadn't yet become a king. A kid who was still just a bundle of influences and nerves, playing around in a small studio after hours. It's about a producer who loved strange sounds, and it's about a song, a very old song, that got twisted into something new and unrecognizable. To get it, you have to go back. Back to 1954, Memphis, Sun Studio. The place wasn't much to look at. A small, simple room. But the man running it, Sam Phillips, had an incredible ear. He wasn't just looking for another singer. He was listening for a sound that nobody had ever heard before. He was searching for something that felt real. He recorded bluesmen, country singers, anyone who had something honest to say. He believed the mistakes, the imperfections, were where the magic was. He wasn't trying to make perfect, polished records. He was trying to capture lightning in a bottle. Into this room walks a teenage Elvis Presley. He's not the icon yet. He's a truck driver. He's shy. He's handsome, but he doesn't know it yet. He loves music, all kinds of music. He loves the blues he hears on Beale Street. He loves the gospel he hears in church. He loves the crooners on the radio like Dean Martin. And he loves country music. He's a sponge. He soaks it all up. He comes into Sun to record a song for his mother. Sam Phillips hears something, not a finished product, but a raw talent. A voice that has this incredible range and emotion. So he pairs him up with two local musicians, Scotty Moore on guitar, Bill Black on upright bass. They weren't a band. They were just three guys in a room trying to figure something out. There were no drums. Think about that. So much of early rock and roll is defined by the beat. But in these early sessions, there was no drummer. It was just Scotty's nimble guitar, Bill's rhythmic slap of the bass, and Elvis's voice and acoustic guitar. This sparseness is a huge part of the sound. There's so much space in the music. And into that space, anything can happen. For months, they tried things. They played ballads. They played country songs. They played blues songs. Nothing was quite clicking. Sam Phillips knew the potential was there, but they hadn't found the key to unlock it. They were getting frustrated. The story goes that during a break in one of these dead-end sessions, Elvis just started fooling around. He picked up his guitar and started singing an old blues song, Arthur Crudup's That's All Right. But he sang it differently. He sang it fast. He sang it with a nervous, joyful energy. Bill Black joined in, slapping his bass. Scotty Moore jumped in with a guitar lick. Sam Phillips, in the control room, heard it. His head popped out the door. "What was that?" he asked. They didn't know. They were just messing around. He told them to do it again. And he hit the record button. That was it. That was the lightning. That was the birth of their sound. A white kid singing a black blues song with a country feel. It was new. It was exciting, and it was rock and roll, but that's not the story of our haunting song. That's the story of the sound that made him famous. Our song came from that same period. It was recorded just a few weeks after That's All Right, but it came from a completely different place. It happened during another late-night session. They had tried some other songs, and again, things were starting to feel a little stale. The pressure was off. The official part of the session was probably over, and once again they started messing around. Someone, maybe it was Bill Black, started playing a little melody on his bass. A simple walking bass line, but it wasn't a rock and roll rhythm. It was a waltz. It was in 3/4 time. 1 2 3 1 2 3. It feels different from the standard 4 on the floor beat of pop music. It sways. It can feel old-fashioned, like a country fair or a ballroom dance. And over this strange loping rhythm, Elvis started to sing. But what he sang wasn't the blues. And it wasn't country in the way you'd expect. He started singing a high-floating falsetto. It was this strange yodeling, hiccuping sound. It was more of a whisper than a shout. It was ethereal. It sounded like a choir boy from another dimension. Where did that come from? It wasn't the powerful baritone he used on That's All Right. It wasn't the smooth croon he'd use later. It was something totally unique to this one moment. The song they were playing was an old pop standard. A really old one from the 1930s. It was written by the legendary songwriters Rodgers and Hart. It was a sweet, romantic, perfectly conventional ballad, a song your grandparents would have danced to. It had been a hit for lots of artists over the years, but it had never, ever sounded like this. They had taken this familiar, cozy old song and turned it inside out. They made it spooky. They made it lonely. But there was another, more direct influence at play. It wasn't just them pulling this out of thin air. For Elvis was a huge fan of the Grand Ole Opry. He listened to it on the radio all the time. And one of the biggest stars of the Opry was a man named Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music. Monroe had a voice they called the high, lonesome sound. It was a piercing, emotional tenor that could cut right through you. And in 1947, Bill Monroe and his bluegrass boys had recorded their own version of the same old standard. Monroe's version was the blueprint. He was the one who took the slow, syrupy ballad and turned it into a fast bluegrass waltz. He was the one who sang it in that high, lonesome key. Elvis was clearly channeling Bill Monroe. He was taking a country interpretation of a pop song and pushing it even further into strange territory. He was adding his own weirdness to it. The bluegrass version was fast and frantic. Elvis's version was slow and dreamlike. He kept the waltz time and the high vocal, but he drenched it in echo and space. And that brings us to the final, crucial ingredient, the sound of the room itself. Sam Phillips was a genius with sound. He was a pioneer of tape echo. He had figured out that by using 2 tape machines, he could feed the signal from one to the other with a slight delay. This created a short, sharp echo. It became known as slapback echo. It's the sound you hear all over those early Sun records. It gives the music a live, energetic, slightly chaotic feel. It makes it sound like it's bouncing off the walls of a big, empty hall. But on this particular recording, the echo sounds different. It's not the quick, rhythmic slapback of Mystery Train or Good Rockin' Tonight. It's longer, it's wetter. It feels like a fog rolling in. It makes Elvis's already ghostly falsetto sound like it's being sung down a long, dark corridor. It separates the voice from the instruments. The bass and guitar sound close, right there in the room with you. But the voice sounds far away. It's a disembodied sound. It's detached, floating above the music. The performance itself is just staggering in its strangeness. He doesn't just sing the notes. He plays with them. He swoops and soars. He uses these little vocal hiccups. He almost sounds like he's crying at times. Then he'll break into this weird, percussive, almost beatboxing sound. It's incredibly playful and experimental. This is not someone trying to sing a song perfectly. This is a young artist using his voice as an instrument. He's exploring all the weird sounds he can make. He had no formula yet. He had no Elvis persona to live up to. He was just a kid in a studio late at night with no one to tell him that what he was doing was strange. And because no one told him it was strange, he created something purely original. You have to remember, this was not meant to be a hit single. It was an experiment. It was an outtake. It was so weird that it wasn't even released for another 2 years. When it finally came out, it was as a track on his debut album for RCA, tucked away among more conventional rock and roll numbers. And even then, people didn't know what to make of it. It was too strange. It didn't fit. It was a leftover from a different time, a different mindset. Over the years, the song became a cult favorite. It was the track that hardcore fans would point to as proof that there was more to Elvis than the gold lame suits and the Hollywood movies. It was proof of his artistry. It was a glimpse of the experimental, avant-garde artist that he might have become if things had gone differently. It's the sound of pure, uninhibited creativity. Filmmakers understood its power, and David Lynch used it in his movie Wild at Heart in a famously strange and beautiful scene. The song's inherent weirdness was a perfect match for Lynch's surreal filmmaking. The song has this cinematic quality. It creates a mood instantly. It's a sound that suggests mystery, loneliness, and a kind of otherworldly beauty. It feels like a transmission from the past, but also from the future. So, why does his voice sound so different? It's the sum of all these parts. It's a young, unformed singer, full of disparate influences, from Dean Martin to Bill Monroe. It's a stripped-down band with no drummer, leaving huge amounts of sonic space. It's the waltz time rhythm, borrowed from a bluegrass version of an old pop song. It's the ghostly tape echo, engineered by a visionary producer. And most of all, it's the sound of a late-night experiment, a happy accident, a moment of pure play, captured on tape before the rules were written. The voice is high and thin because he's singing in a falsetto he rarely used again. It's haunting because of that cavernous echo. It's strange because the performance is so free and uninhibited, full of yodels and hiccups that feel completely spontaneous. It doesn't sound like the king of rock and roll because he wasn't the king yet. He was just a prince of possibilities. He would go on to make hundreds of other recordings. Many were brilliant, some were revolutionary, some were, to be honest, pretty mediocre. His voice would grow deeper, richer, and more powerful over the years. It became one of the most famous and recognizable instruments of the 20th century. He could sing anything and make it his own, but he never ever sounded like this again. It's almost like, for just these 2.5 minutes, a different person stepped up to the microphone. A visitor? A spirit. He sang his strange, lonely song, and then he was gone, replaced by the man who would conquer the world. But he left this recording behind. A little piece of evidence, a clue to the strange artistic soul that was always there, underneath the fame and the glamour. It's a reminder that sometimes the most interesting things happen when you're not trying. When you're just fooling around in a small room late at night. When you forget about who you're supposed to be, and just let the weirdness out. It's a perfect storm of a recording. Change any one element, and it would fall apart. If he had used his normal voice, it would have been just another ballad. If they had played it in 4/4 time, it would have lost its hypnotic sway. If Sam Phillips hadn't bathed it in that specific echo, it would have lost its ghostly atmosphere. It is a one-of-a-kind moment, a beautiful accident, and that's why it stays with you. It's not just a song, it's a mystery. It's a sound that doesn't quite make sense. It's the sound of a young man on the cusp of unimaginable fame, taking an old familiar standard and singing it like a message from a distant star. It's raw and it's vulnerable and it's profoundly strange. It's one of the most hauntingly beautiful recordings ever made. The song is Blue Moon.